So here we are, it's August, still in the dry season, and here this is the start of episode number 2 of our yard walk. We'll take a walk around the yard here and see what's going on. We've had, on a couple occasions so far this summer, we've had a trace of rain. I don't know, we maybe got a quarter inch, maybe a half an inch total, which is probably pretty typical for. There's some thumping and crashing going on here, and I don't see it, but I'm sure there's a squirrel in the tree which is cutting down the Doug fir cones and dropping them to the ground. There's on the driveway up here, there's probably a number of them, which happens about this time of year in preparation for winter. The Doug squirrels eat the seeds from the Doug fir trees, and they stake out a territory of a couple of acres, which is kind of nice because that way we only get a few. Yeah, here on the driveway, let's just take a look here. You can see these little clumps lying here. These are all Doug fir cones, which I'll probably have to come and sweep off. Some of them are somewhat green. He tends to cut them when they're still green, leaves them laying on the ground, and then he comes down and harvests them, I guess. Here we have a pyracanthus. This is covered with little green berries, which will turn red in the winter. It's an evergreen, has some thick thorns. I've got it planted here in the middle of I forget what this is, some kind of a boxwood or something, I forget. I planted a couple of little tiny shrubs up here years ago, and they've turned into this massive clump, but it gives a nice yellow color here at the top of the driveway. We've got some dahlias starting to bloom now this time of year. These ones were just planted this year. Dahlias here tend to last for a few years. They come back. I don't bother to dig them up, but they'll come back a few times. And some of them, we had some hardy ones that lasted probably about 10 years, but eventually either we had a really cold or a really wet winter or something, and they died off. But these, I got some purple and some yellow ones here. The barking in the distance is the neighbor's annoying dog. You can try to ignore that. This is a snowberry. Snowberries are native to the Northwest. Their berries are not edible, at least not by humans. But yesterday I noticed on here there were several bees. There's still some little flowers. They have little flowers that look like they're in the blueberry family here, and the bees were still working on those. This one has, the berries are not white. I have another one up the hill over here where the berries are white. These are have kind of a pinkish tint. I don't know in the bright sun if you can see that or not. And then next to this is a catmint that's still blooming. Our cats really like the catmint. And you can see what I did here with the rock wall. These are just those concrete blocks that just rest on each other. They overlap a little bit. I went 3, 4, up to 5 rows high. Any higher, and then it might be dangerous, but because they're not really. They're just gravity just holds them in place. And then I filled in behind them with compost and mulch, and that's how I did my rows up here. And there's different colors. I don't know if they're kind of turning white now, but I had a mixture of at least 2 different colors of rock, of concrete, and I mixed them as I randomly arranged them as I placed them out here. Well, let's see what we got here at the front. This is a begonia, which is about, it's more than 10 years old. It's probably about 15 years old. I had this begonia before we moved to this house. It's been in this pot the whole time. It lives outside in mostly shade during the summer months, and then when the temperature gets down to under 40 at night, it starts losing its leaves, and it goes into the garage in a dark space in my unheated but attached garage, and it sits there dormant all winter. Comes out next spring. It hasn't started blooming yet, but it'll start blooming here pretty soon. This is a chrysanthemum, which is very old. It's been here a long time too, and it's just, here's one bloom right there. It's just starting to bloom now. It's of course a fall bloomer. so it'll be covered with blooms pretty soon. There's some other potted plants here. This is oregano here, which Kathy brought home one day, and so we've been enjoying oregano. And I've got different pots here with different things on it. And this is a fuchsia, which I bought last year after the peak of the season. It was on sale. It was a bedraggled little thing that nobody had wanted, and I got it really cheap. And I brought it home and I hung it up here. And it didn't really bloom too much last year, but it actually sat here in this pot all winter outside under the eave here. And as you can see, it's doing pretty well right now. It's got a number of very nice little blossoms here, which are very pretty. So it's got some more coming yet. So it was a good deal. I'm surprised. I didn't know that it would survive. We're here with the fig trees. We've harvested most of the first crop of figs. There's a few left here. What Kathy looks for now, this is soft and it's drooping. But what she looks for is you get like a little drop of sweet syrup at the bottom of the fig, and that's when Kathy really likes the figs. These are this particular variety is Desert King. It's probably the one that does the best in the Northwest. Over here next to it, I have another one that's a Turkish brown that I planted a few years later. It didn't get very, you can see it's pretty small. It almost died in a bad winter we had, but it's came back. And here's another fig. And this episode down here in the backwoods, our little bench here surrounded by ferns. These are all native ferns. I never planted any of these. We have at least I know we've got at least 3 different kinds of ferns. Never been really good at telling them apart. These here are certainly sword ferns, which are the most common. We also have deer ferns and at least one other kind. I'm just looking around here at the moment. I don't see any other ones right here, but all I see right here are the sword ferns. And this is probably a native berry, which looks like it's already passed this year. I forget the name of it. It's a soft berry that the natives use sometimes. It wasn't their favorite for clear reasons. Before I finish, I guess this is a red huckleberry. This is a deciduous huckleberry. It gets little red berries. There's one there. I guess hopefully you can see that. They tend to grow. They really like to grow out of stumps. And if you have an old cedar stump, which lasts for decades, if not centuries, here's an old cedar stump that was here. It's probably been here more than 20 years. It was here back when they first logged this. And you can see growing right out of this cedar stump here is a big red huckleberry. And seems to be pretty happy there. There's a little of the native undergrowth here too, which is salal. I'll probably talk about that in a future episode. But here's a western red cedar stump. You can see it was a pretty big tree. It was probably more than 3 feet across, probably close to 4 feet across. It was a big tree they cut down. But the red huckleberry certainly likes it. So anyway, that's our episode for August, and probably do this again.